Hello and welcome back to Jedi Guybrarian's Holocron show. Today I wanted to make sure people know that I'm also a proud member of the Resistance and a rebel. I mean, that's what I do. I rebel. And I've skipped ahead to Chapter 4 in Ray Carson's excellent novel, The Rise of Skywalker. And Chapter 4 has a lot of detail about characters and plot. On page 50 to 51, we get the main plot of the story, as the Resistance, the good guys, discover that Palpatine and the First Order have a huge, deadly fleet of Star Destroyers that they are preparing to unleash on the galaxy unless our heroes can find the planet Exegol and stop them. Of course, this plot is also very connected to the main conflict of the story between the First Order and the Resistance. "We're not ready," Beaumont said. "Only half our ships are working. We have no large-scale weapons." Rose raised her chin. "So we fix them. Fast." "Friends," Leia said, her voice commanding attention. "This is the only moment that counts. Everything we fought for is at stake. If this fleet launches," Beaumont said, "freedom dies in the galaxy." Wow, no pressure there. Okay, so the main person-to-person conflict is between this evil fleet and what's left of the Resistance, and also, of course, between the Sith and the Jedi. But later we'll also look at some person-to-self conflict involving Rey's pull to the dark side and Kylo's pull to the light. We learn more about several characters in Chapter 4. Rose, for example. Many people did not like that Rose stayed at the base in the Rise of Skywalker movie rather than go with Finn and the others on an adventure, but the book makes it clear on page 60. Rose was needed on base. In addition to studying Star Destroyer specs, Rose would be doing everything she could to get what ships they had in top fighting shape. So Rose has become a big deal, people. She is really in charge of getting the Resistance ships ready to fight, and also in charge of figuring out how to stop the huge First Order fleet that's getting ready to destroy everyone. So yeah, she's kind of needed at the base. We also learn more detail about General Leia's character on pages 58 to 59 when we find out that her brother Luke is actually speaking to her through the Force and letting her know that it is time to let Rey go on her own. And when Leia talks with her little friend Maz, we learn sadly that Leia's physical body is weakening. On page 59, Leia is actually holding Han Solo's medal that she gave him so many years ago as Maz is talking to her. "Your spirit is strong, my friend," Maz said, "but you are not well. Your body grows weaker and weaker. Give her your blessing. Give her Luke's lightsaber." Leia sighed. Being blown off the bridge of the Raddus into the vacuum of space had taken a toll. She had saved herself that day through the power of the Force, but her body had paid a steep price. So, even though Leia's Force skills saved her in The Last Jedi, and her power in the Force is still strong, at her age it did have a serious effect on her, and she is growing physically weaker now. In this chapter, we also get introduced to some brand new characters. For example, on page 49, we are introduced to Aftab Akbar, who we learn is the son of the famous Admiral Akbar. And we first hear about one of my favorite new characters while Rey is reading through the Jedi texts that she had taken from Luke, and this new character's name is Beaumont. We briefly meet him in the movie, and he's played by Dominic Monaghan, who you may recognize as the Hobbit Merry from Lord of the Rings. Here's page 45 of the novel. The mysterious notations were in Luke's handwriting, which meant they had been carefully ciphered on purpose. Rey's friend Beaumont, a former historian and current Resistance intelligence officer, had been working to unlock these portions, and Rey hoped to have some answers soon. Then later, Beaumont does meet with Rey and the rest of our main protagonists as they gather together to figure out what to do. On page 57, while they packed their things, Beaumont had been doing some final research. Now Rey and her friends gathered with him beneath the jungle canopy to go over what he'd learned. Beaumont Kin was a slight, sandy-haired man who appeared younger than his years. He wore a mud-speckled field jacket and always carried a holstered blaster, on strict orders from Rose and Connix, who insisted that even an academic had to have a good blaster at his side. He bent over a console table, Jedi texts arrayed before him. "I've analyzed Luke's ciphers," Beaumont said. "Learned a little more about the Wayfinders." He pointed to a familiar page from one of the texts, the one with the drawing of a pyramidal object. Ancient things, Beaumont said. Only 2 were made. One for the Sith Master, one for the apprentice. Rey peered closer. She'd always found the markings on the Wayfinder odd. Circles with lines leading away from them, like crude navigation charts. Beaumont pointed to some cipher text. Luke was on the hunt for the Emperor's Wayfinder, but his trail went cold on a desert world called Pasana. Luke left coordinates. They point to the Forbidden Valley. So, Beaumont is a historian, and they need his expertise to figure out what to do. I mean, they wouldn't even know where to begin their search for the Emperor if it wasn't for Beaumont's studying and knowledge. They even refer to him as an academic, a word that, when it's used as a noun, means a person who studies or teaches at a high place of learning, such as a college. And this character was becoming a professor when the war broke out. So they listen to this guy because he is so well educated. What an excellent message that education and knowledge are just as important as heroic physical actions. And as a history major myself, I think it is very cool to have a historian, a student and teacher of history, helping the Resistance to look back at the past in order to make decisions in the present to create a better future. Kylo Ren is the opposite. He always says he wants to destroy the past. But historians like Beaumont know that it is important that we learn from the past. When the Resistance leaders have a big meeting and question whether Palpatine could actually return, it is Beaumont's knowledge of studying ancient Sith that leads him to tell them about it on page 49. Aftab Akbar was shaking his head. "It cannot be! The Emperor is dead!" he insisted. "Killed aboard the second Death Star!" But Beaumont murmured, "Dark science, cloning, secrets only the Sith knew." He stared off into the distance as if lost in thought. His mental catalog of Sith lore was vast, and if he thought it was possible for the Emperor to cheat death, then Rey did too. And by the way, you can learn many more details about the Beaumont character in the excellent Rise of Skywalker Visual Dictionary by Pablo Hidalgo. It has an awesome amount of visuals and details and descriptions that you don't want to miss. I highly recommend both of these books. Until next time, may the Force and reading be with you.